Well, welcome to another session of Culture and Communication. In this session, we're going to be dealing with cultural differences. There's probably an infinite number of cultural differences that we could talk about, but we're going to talk about only 6 or 8 of them, depending on our time, but it will give us a flavor for some of the cultural differences and some categories for how to identify these cultural differences. But before we get to some of the actual cultural differences, I have a quotation I would like to show you. And it was written by a person who was Anglican in background, and he wrote a book called The Miracle of Dialogue. This quotation had an influence on me early in my education because it caused me to think and to ponder what's involved in human relations, in human communication. Rule Howe says, "Every man is a potential adversary, even those we love. Only through dialogue are we saved from this enmity toward one another. Dialogue is to love what blood is to the body. When the flow of blood stops, the body dies. When dialogue stops, love dies, and resentment and hatred are born." One of the things that I was involved in earlier in my career was the doing peace conferences and conflict resolution conferences. I did a number of these in Africa, a number of these in Eastern Europe, a number of them in the United States, and then I was also involved in peace and reconciliation among businessmen, among church leaders, and various people like that. When you get involved in these areas, particularly as in Liberia, it was right in the middle of their civil war. In Croatia, it had been shortly after the war. In South Africa, it was the ongoing tension between black and white communities. When you get involved in these situations, it can get very discouraging. You realize that people don't have much difficulty hating each other. It seems it comes quite natural for them. And then eventually, of course, killing. So to realize that we are all potential adversaries, even those we love. So when you talk about even those we love, you say to yourself, well, look at the divorce rate. In America, it's 50%. Half of the people who commit the rest of their lives to each other end up hating each other and going their separate ways. So Rule Howe says that dialogue is a good part of what will help us to move forward and to be better at communication so that we don't have these situations of hatred and animosity and resentment, and then eventually separation, and maybe even doing harmful things to each other. Well, in this matter of cultural differences, it's often the differences that cause us the problems. Let me think with you about differences for a moment. When I grew up, there were categories in my father's mind that were categories of right, things that were right, he put in this category. Things that were wrong, he would put in this category. And things that were different, he would put in this category. But nothing was ever different with my father. Either it was wrong or right. No difference. Okay. Wrong, of course, was like him, not like him. Right was like him. And so we grew up knowing that you must agree with your father or you're wrong. If you're wrong, that could be trouble. I thought that my father maybe was a little too narrow, so I decided to broaden. Here was my category of differences now. Right and wrong, bigger category of differences. But when I married, of course, then my wife had certain things which were different, but I was inclined, or I wanted to put them in the category of wrong, because I still wanted her to look like me. And maybe she did the same when I did some things that she didn't understand. You'll have to ask her. But I at least tried to expand my category of differences. So some things were neither right nor wrong. They were just cultural differences. My brother's favorite ice cream was chocolate. I didn't care for chocolate. Is that right or wrong? It's a difference. It doesn't matter really. We can live with differences. Poached eggs you discovered the other day. Right or wrong? No, just a difference, you see. A difference of opinion, a difference of preference. So I tried to create that category of differences. Well, eventually my children come along and they think their father's a little too narrow, a little too rigid. So now they have a category called differences too. Well, you can understand that that creates trouble now, difficulty, because things that they put in their category of differences, see, we agree on some things here, but then they go farther, and that's where the difficulties come. So in that situation, for example, a certain kind of music, they said, Dad, it's just our taste. It's not your taste, it's our taste. And I say, no, I think it's not a matter of taste. I think your music is wrong. No, Dad, you're wrong. Our music is a different, and so now you're getting into this tension, you see. How late can we stay out at night? Well, I think that on school nights you should be in at 9 o'clock. On when it's a weekend, 10:30. Oh, Dad, that's terrible. No. We should. Our friends can stay out until midnight on weekends. Oh, I said, no, I don't think so. See, I'm putting it in the category. That's too much. That's not good. That's wrong. But Dad, that's just, you don't understand, you see. They wanted to put it in the category of differences. So now they've got their category of differences. But now what happens with their children when they come along? Is it going to be like that? Where does it stop, you see? So that in culture, the category of differences seems to be almost infinite now. And the categories of right and wrong seem to be very small, sometimes almost non-existent. So people in America say, well, that's me, that's not you, that's me, it's just different. Don't get worried about it. Well, that's one of the tension points, of course. When you're a Christian particularly, the Bible articulates, the Bible speaks of rights and wrongs, things that we can believe, things that are right, and we can engage in those things. Other things that are wrong, they're sinful, they go against God's will and God's purposes, and we should avoid doing those. And we believe that God makes those things right or wrong for good reason. They protect us. They help us to live better, more fulfilled, more satisfying kinds of lives. Now, many of us have the difficulty, not so much of this area of differences, but of a reasonable category of differences. But when we find something that should be in the category of difference, our tendency is to put it in the category of wrong and to judge people. We're continuing that idea of making judgments because we assume that our way is the right way. And if you do it differently, at least it's suspicious, if not wrong. Or it's inferior, if not wrong. Okay. Let me just illustrate this with a couple of stories, and then we'll begin to talk about the specific cultural differences. Which do you think is the greater sin? To tell a lie or to lose your temper? Which would be the greatest sin of those two? A lie or losing your temper? What do you think? What would be your judgment from your cultural perspective? Vitali?
Yeah, I would say in majority people would prefer tell a lie than lose the temper. Mm-hmm. The temper, it's more kind of express the person and they're afraid of negative things, but while it seems like easier to tell the lie and something. And the whole idea of hypocrisy that you can talk nice to the man, but you just hold up with not losing the temper. So when you say, oh, one who loses temper, this is a bad man. But it seems hypocrisy in this case is lesser sin, while there's a big question.
Probably the majority of the world would believe that losing your temper is a greater sin. Because when you lose your temper, you violate the relationship. And the majority of the world is concerned about preserving the relationship. And that's actually a good thing. So to tell a lie in many cultures is not so bad, especially if the lie doesn't do damage to the person, doesn't hurt anyone. And of course, we have in America what we call white lies, little white lies. Oh, that's such a beautiful baby. Well, maybe the baby looks like a bulldog or a bus or something, you know, but we say it's such a pretty baby, little white lies. Well, those, of course, are pretty much harmless, and we want the mother and the father to feel good and so on. But we'll get in a moment to other kinds of things, lies in terms of people making commitments and then not fulfilling the commitment. But they never intended to fulfill the commitment, but they said they would anyway. So that's a different kind of lie, because now you have expectations based on something. Well, let's try, in the West, typically, to tell a lie is worse sin because we want truth. We value truth. We want people to be honest. We want to be able to take you at your word. So if we can't trust what you say to be true, then we can't trust you. And so to tell the truth is a much greater virtue. And losing your temper, it happens all the time, but people get over it and we move on with life. So very different depending on the culture that you're in. So if you're in another culture where losing your temper is a serious sin or a serious violation of cultural pattern, then the relationship can be broken actually for years and years because of you losing your temper, because for them it's a greater sin. So by knowing that, we can adjust and we can be careful. I know missionaries that seem to get upset, maybe angry, and they'll shout at a local person, a national person. And to them, they think nothing of the shouting at somebody in disgust or frustration. Because in their family, they shout and get frustrated with each other all the time, and it's nothing, we move on. But in that culture, you don't move on. That does serious damage to the relationship. Now, the other person, the local person, might carry on as though things are all right, but the trust is gone for a very long time, sometimes for a lifetime. So we have to know these things. Let me give you another story. I need to say it's fictitious because it has to do with life and death. It is fictitious. So you are on a boat, and the boat capsizes, and there are 3 people beside yourself, and you're able to save only one person. Who do you save? Do you save your mother? She's been a good mom, okay? Do you save your spouse, whom you love deeply? And if you're not married, you have to assume that you're married and that you love your spouse very much. Or do you save your child, who's a lovely, delightful, obedient child? Who do you save? Who would you save if you had to make that decision? Now again, there's another principle behind here that goes beyond the story. So just play with me, just work with me on the story, okay? And if your spouse is sitting next to you, your answer will be easy. At least if you don't want any more discussion on the matter. All right, who do you save? All right, give us a try here, Ina.
I think a child, because adults can help themselves more than children. Children are helpless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You might think that perhaps the spouse could, make it to safety or something. In this case, the story allows for that to happen. So, but save the child. Okay, that's one answer. We'll come back to that in a moment. Would somebody save a different member, the spouse or the mother? Well, how many of you would save your mother?
Everyone.
What?
Would you please give us a little broader context? Because it's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
When you talk about a child, what age is the child? I mean, if it's a small child, I mean, really, like 3-year-old, he won't make it himself or herself, right? I mean,
Nobody's going to make it unless you take care of them.
no,
So that's the rule.
Oh, so it's me and somebody else.
It's you and somebody else, and
Okay.
everybody else will die
Oh my
in the
goodness.
story. Yes, it is very
I'm
difficult.
signing off.
No, you can't sign off because then everybody, you can't save anybody then
How do I save that person? What's the saving device?
because you have the capacity to take them
just
safely
take
to
it-
shore.
Okay.
Maybe you're a good swimmer and you can swim
All
with
right.
them and help
No,
them.
no saving ring or anything.
No. For the purposes of the story, it has to be very clean.
Okay. All right. I'm signing off.
You can't.
Yeah.
It's not allowed in the story.
Well, yeah, I'll probably vote for a child.
You would probably save the child.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. There are no right or wrong answers here.
I mean, it's a moral choice.
It is a moral choice.
Is there an option not to save anyone and to die with all of them?
Not in the story. That's not an option. Okay. You're okay. Vitali, do you want to give us your answer?
Yeah, I assume the question is really try to expose the cultural understanding of who is more important in the culture. There's some
We're going to get to that.
mothers or something, but really, I know we're waiting so long. I think everybody dies already because we couldn't decide who to save.
And that has happened in real life. If you can't
I
make a
assume
decision.
because it's so hard decision, and So I don't know right now. I don't think it's in our culture. Is really we have this great, sound like a patristic culture or maternal mother's culture where the mothers is important. But I don't think in Russian culture it's too much of anything. So it will be some more like a impulsive things to do it. So this is very hard for us to decide. We don't have this strong cultural idea of who is more important of this. So it will be more like harder to decide.
Why would you save your child? Let's talk about that. What would be the rationale for saving the child versus the other two? Gazelle?
Well, in my personal situation, I love my husband more than any other member of the family, even more than my child. But at the same time, I know that my husband's choice would be to save his daughter and see that both of us are alive. And my mother's choice would be that also because she's 60 years old and she had life already. She has seen enough, and the little girl has future. And we will have good memories about all of them. And I think that in some cultures, in this case, they usually save those who are old and those who are young, because older generation has wisdom and younger generation has future. And well, I can't save my mother and my husband and my daughter at the same time, so I will just choose to save my daughter.
And that's a very good reason or reasons for saving your daughter. And in fact, in America, that would be the most common response. I mean, some will choose a spouse or a mother, but the most common response is the child. And the perspective is because the mother and the husband or the wife would want the child to be saved. And so you would do that because that would be the consensus of everybody. Why would you save your spouse over your child and your mother? Any reasons there? Now you're going to argue now for the other decision.
No.
No.
I just want to give another reason why I would save my husband if that was the decision of all other members of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So, because life would be miserable without your second half.
Mm-hmm.
When you just get married, you become like one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a piece of paper glued together. So if you just try to get one part of the paper, then another part is just really harmed.
Sure.
And life would be painful without the husband. And in my personal situation, I would never marry another person. That's that's my decision.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, sometimes they say you could get another husband, and then why not just save your daughter?
Mm-hmm.
But you can get another child if you get married again,
Mm-hmm.
and you have only one mother.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult decision.
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so the bond of husband and wife is very strong. The love, the loyalty that you build up, the desire to be with that person for the rest of your life. Now, under what conditions would you save your mother? She would be the choice of the one. What reasons would you have for choosing your mother over the... None? No reasons? You seem very ungrateful to me. What has your mother done for you? She's carried you for 9 months. She nurtured you. She protected you, and now nothing? Many of them say what you had said, Gazelle, that you can always get another child, you can always get another husband, but you can never get another mother. In many cultures, the mother will be saved. And so in many cultures, not even necessarily maternalistic, but the idea being that you have obligation to parents for all the years of what they've given and what they've sacrificed for you. And this is actually would be an easy decision for them. Of course, I would say my mother or my father, whoever was there, because I think of all that they have done for me, think of all that they've given, all that they've sacrificed. All right. The point here is one answer more or less right than the other answer? And the response is no. Any of those 3 choices would be acceptable given your cultural history, given your cultural traditions, given how you think about life. In the majority of the world, gray hair, my hair, is considered to be wisdom, and you want to protect wisdom. You want to protect the older people because they carry the wisdom of the ages, and you rely upon them for advice and counsel and caring and so on. But in the West, in my country, once you're over 50, you seem to be less and less important, less and less necessary. And pretty soon you're just, left somewhere. So the youth are the ones who are given all of the emphasis. And the youth, of course, particularly in a technological age, the youth know all the technology, and they're very good at it, and they can manage all the machines and things like that. And so they are very valuable, and we must honor them for what they have. But age is not revered, not honored so much in Western culture as it is in the other world. Right or wrong? Well, maybe different.
We invite you to participate in the International Bible Teaching and Gospel Sharing Project. Whether these Christian expanded educational opportunities will become available to people around the world depends on all of us. We very much need and value your prayer and financial support. For more information, please visit www.tvseminary.com.
Now, let's make a transition then into specific differences, but I want to start with a question. Muriel hinted at it earlier when she said, what are the rules of living in your culture? So I want to go back and push you on a couple of those issues. If I'm coming into Russia and I'm going to be, let's say that I'm going to be a professor in your universities or in your public school, in your school system somewhere. And I'm going to live here for the next, 15, 20 years, I hope, because I enjoy and love the Russian people. I'm looking forward to learning the language, and I know that I must learn it and in order to be effective here. But what else do I need to know in order to be effective and successful and feel happy in your culture? You need to advise me now. I'm paying you each $1,000 an hour to give me very important advice so that my next 10 years will be happy, fulfilling, effective years. Tell me what I must know about Russian culture. The time is clicking here, and I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, you have to learn how to eat raw pig's fat.
Okay, if I eat raw pig's fat, then I will be a happy person?
Yeah, the sala we call it. That's really the special food. But
And that will make me effective in living here in
I
Russia?
think so. I mean,
Okay.
the big part of it. So
All right.
At least it make
Eat
it.
pig's fat.
Yeah, at least it make you be friends with most of the Russian men who eats this stuff.
So actually, that's one of the connections
Yeah,
with
if-
my colleagues, my other men, Russian men,
Yeah, because
would
when,
be to eat together this pig's fat.
when I came to America and I find bacon, this is one of the best thing, and
Yeah.
we just put it in the bread and start to eat it.
Okay.
And one my friend called his friend. He said, "Those Russians, they eat raw meat."
Yeah.
You know, but for us the bacon was great. So something like this. But
Okay.
it's something like I would say the food that may connects you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure it's going to make you happy. My point, it may connect you
It make
better
me
with the
fat.
culture, yeah, it make you fat, but I'm not sure it's make you happy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but it'll make me happy if I have friends.
Yeah, they'll make connect in a certain
All right.
way.
What else besides eating this pig's fat stuff? What else should I do to be effective, to be fulfilled, happy, successful?
Yeah, you should realize that people don't see life as in black and white colors in Russia, so there are much more gray areas here
Okay.
than you
Give me-
expect.
Can you give me an example of a gray area?
Like paying your taxes, it's in a gray area. Like many laws, gray area, and truth is more relative for Russians than for Westerns, and it may affect the way you live in Russia.
Okay, very good. So things are not so rigid and black and white. That's important. Good. Are there things that are black and white and rigid that I must not compromise?
Say, but there are some moral values. They are still black and white, and there are some borders you shouldn't cross. Yeah.
Good. Someone else. I'm paying you a lot of money to give me
Oh,
good advice
well.
here. So far, very good.
Okay.
Marissa.
I would say that schedules are not all that rigid here in this country, and a lot of Russians prefer heart-to-heart conversations at the time when they need them.
Heart to
That
heart.
means, that means that you can easily build relationships if you feel like you can, spend time with that person, and even if you take some time off your schedule and just put it in, sacrifice something for that person's sake, and that's when the real relationships start to form. And here you just pop in, you just show up at the door and say, "Hey, I feel sad" or something. Go have a cup of tea and just talk it over, and that's it's not like America. In America, everything's scheduled, and you can't really interfere all that much.
Yeah, you have to schedule a cup of tea about a week ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly.
But
and
then-
the same
then
with
the
students.
sadness
If you
is
want to
gone.
be a productive professor, you have to actually, love your students. Being competent is not enough here. It's just it's about relationships as well.
How do you show love to students? Because love is culturally defined.
Yeah. You show respect for them by respecting their opinions and everything, by supporting them in every way, by telling them things that make them feel like they are important, like they are adults, by listening to them and to their experiences and how they share it, and things like that. Again, you just talk to them, and what they especially like to do is talk to you over a break when they want, when they want to know a little more about yourself as a person, as a human being, as a personality. They value it a lot too.
So being available to
Being
hang
available and
out.
being open and sincere. I mean, they wouldn't want you to, open up your heart and share everything about you. That's not needed. But
Sure.
but they want some sincerity and some genuine attitude to them on your part. That would help you to adapt a little easier.
Okay, very good. Olga, we'll take you as the last one.
Some foreigners like to take pictures of some things that look not very nice. So, and the Russians don't like it. So it's better not to do it. I don't think it's common of foreigners, but still, there are cases.
Okay, so put the camera away sometimes. Don't, because that could be rude. The people would see that as not very kind. Okay. We're going to finish this session now, and in a few minutes we'll come back and start a session on some of the major cultural differences that have come out of anthropology and the field of cross-cultural communication that tend to separate the Western values, Western ways of thinking versus the majority world. Now, by West, we think of Western Europe typically. Russia's often included in the West, but I also understand that Russia is a wonderful mixture of West and East cultures, and you really tend to flow back and forth there. And so it'll be interesting how you handle some of these cultural differences that we put on two extremes. What we'll try to remember is that while we're talking about rather extreme opposites, the fact is that most of us operate, in a fluid way. Sometimes we can be very time-oriented. Sometimes we can be more concerned about the event, what's happening, who's there, and how do we make the most of this time together. So, see you in a few minutes.
Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed, and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 10-11. How to give to TVS Ministry. You may give online at efca.org/givenow. In the description place, write Russia Distance Learning, account number 24109-0150. Or make checks out to EFCA. Write on the check memo line, Russian Distance Learning, account number 24109-0150. Mail to EFCA Donor Services, 901 East 78th Street, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55420-1300. Or send your gift through PayPal for tvs.gift@gmail.com.